Welcome to Module 1. This module is all about kind of thinking about how you explore writer's development, how you look at your own writing, and how you look at your students' writing. For this module, you have 4 different resources. You will read Chapter 5 from Kelly Gallagher's book. You will read Chapters 6 and 7 from Gipe and Richards. You will read a chapter from Draper, and I also have a TED Talk that I would like for you to view. Let's take a look at some of the things in this module. When I think about writing, I found a cute little comic here. Sorry, ma'am, but bad grammar is no excuse for vandalism. And this is, it says when English teachers snap. I don't know about you, but some of you may think of yourself when it comes to grammar and writing and teaching literacy as always, being on everybody else for making sure that they have the proper grammar. And, those are the kinds of things that can drive you nuts. Others might feel a little differently. So I want you to think in your head about your first impression of this. So imagine that your principal tells you that beginning next Monday, you will be the new writing teacher. You will be responsible for teaching writing to all students in your current grade level. What does this make you think of? Maybe you think, I got this. No need to worry. Or does it scare you? Maybe you feel a little bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger teaching kindergarten. Maybe this is what will drive you to retirement. Or are you excited? Can hardly wait. This is exactly what you've been waiting for. Maybe you're the type of person that says, no big deal. Why? Why would I worry? Or does this make you hate your job? Think about this, and hopefully by the end of this course, no matter how you start off feeling, you will end with some great strategies that will help you kind of tackle writing and look at writing from a different perspective. So for today's lesson, I want you to focus on this idea of leaning in and leaning out. Often when we think about writing and we think about reading, we don't often look to ourselves first for what this might mean in terms of our teaching. So the purpose of this activity today is that you are going to help your students and yourself understand how language influences our thoughts, feelings, and our learning. I also want this to show you that, as a student, you have power over your learning. And then also to teach students to read texts closely, to find text-based evidence to support your inferences about the characters, thoughts, feelings, and attitudes. So this whole idea of leaning in, leaning out. So we're going to have 3 key areas of focus for this: mindfulness, posture, and perspective. And I don't know about you, but right away I'm thinking, I thought this was a writing class. Yes, you are correct. You have enrolled in the right class, but we're going to take a different approach to how we think about writing development. So when we look at mindfulness, I want you to think about this quote here by Julianne Gary. She says, practicing mindfulness in the classroom helps kids regulate behavior and focuses on learning. This might not be anything new to you, but maybe this whole idea of mindfulness is something that you are not real familiar with. So I am going to read this to you. We have a couple of slides here, but I want you to think about this. Carol Clancy, who supervises special education for the Lancaster, Pennsylvania City Schools, had a serious problem. She couldn't hold on to her teachers. The students in special ed classes were distracted and disruptive. They had the reputation of being unmanageable and out of control, she says. But that was before they started learning mindfulness in the classroom. When Wynn Kinder, lead instructor for the mindfulness program, Wellness Works in Schools, walks into Christina Suter's special ed classroom at Lincoln Middle School in Lancaster, the group of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders is already moving tables out of the way and spacing chairs out in rows for what the school refers to a social skills class. There are always one or two who are very reluctant to come and sit, says Kinder. Transitions are hard for many of these kids. Very often, I will start by sharing a personal story related to the topic. Resilience, for example. The story draws the kids in. It's all about making a connection. Then she rings the chimes. I ask them to notice what their mind does with the sound. With their eyes closed, the students then focus on their posture. I ask them to sit in seated mountain to add dignity and strength, she says. I work with them on what your posture says to you, about you, and then what your posture says to the world. Many of Kinder's exercises relate to the subtleties of different kinds of attention. Attention to breath, to how different parts of their bodies feel, how their feet connect to the floor, their seats to their chairs. What are some things that can be discovered with mindfulness in the classroom? Well, it creates calmness. It can clear your prefrontal cortex. Discipline problems become teachable moments. And it can help kids manage stress. In addition, I want you to start thinking about how being able to focus, I'm going to go back, being able to focus on these things, how might this also help with specific content areas? So let's take writing as a separate area right now. Of course, we can put that into content areas and think about how things fit together, but just writing itself, thinking about writing a piece. How might all of these things contribute to kids being less reluctant to write, thinking about how they can pay attention to details, how they can include more details in their writing? These are all things that we're going to be exploring over the next few weeks. So our second thing I want you to think about is posture. Posture is important. I love this. Look less like a comma, more like an exclamation mark. We often judge people by the way that they look. If their posture is poor, sometimes we think, that they're being lazy or uninterested. That's something common. If their, posture is, if they're standing upright, they seem to be more attentive. So I want you to think about how that also relates to your teaching and to the students' learning. So this idea of leaning in and leaning out. Think about your own self. Kind of do some reflections over the next week about how your posture is affected by things that you like and things that you don't, things that you're interested in, things that you're not. So this idea of leaning in is you saying, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm paying attention. This idea of leaning out is often you saying, oh no, this is not something that I want, or I feel uncomfortable. So let's take a look at a couple pictures here to get the idea. So think about how you would react to some of these pictures. For me, a snake, I'm definitely leaning out. So I'm going to show you a couple pictures and just kind of think about yourself. Reading a book. Having a donut. Playing golf. Skydiving. Eating carrots or vegetables. Watching a Bengals game. So continue the next few weeks thinking about how your posture is related to the things that you are doing or even the concepts that you are teaching. Maybe even with this class, some of the things that we are discussing. Maybe I said mindfulness and you're like, whoa, that is not something that I like, and you are leaning out. So start paying attention to your posture. So the third thing we're going to look at is perspective. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Again, probably nothing new, but something to think about. So I want you to, just for yourself, you don't have to turn this in or anything, but I want you to think about your perspective and, how others might view you. So here's a bio poem. So thinking about a biography of yourself here. So really it should be an autobiography, but that's the frame I used here. So you have 10 different lines and you can see the poem that I created. So I have Michelle, this is about me. Michelle, kind, creative, intelligent, caring, daughter of two hardworking people, lover of children, who fears failure, who needs continuous growth, who gives to others, who would like to see a healthy world, a resident of Oxford, Cosma. These are things that I don't necessarily maybe see in myself, but I'm trying to put myself outside, looking at a different perspective of how others might view me. The poem could be very differently if you did it about what you think of yourself. So I want you to challenge yourself to think about how others might say this of you. You could even ask somebody to write this poem for you and see how theirs compares to what you come up with. But I want you to start thinking about perspective and how this can change and impact our teaching and learning. So as we continue on today, I'm going to go back to our first slide here. And I want you to think about all of the different resources that you're viewing. I want you to think about how writers develop. And as you're doing that this week, I want you to really start to pick out some themes that connect with your teaching. I want you to start thinking about what brings you joy, what makes you lean in. And I want you to start examining your students' writing and their development. I hope you enjoy the resources in Module 1. I look forward to reading your feedback in your retrospective. And remember again that everything is due February 17th.